web for today's webinar of Comala Document Management for Confluence Cloud. So for today's webinar, today's agenda, we'll be looking at a little bit about who is Comalatech, what is Comala Document Management, the use cases that our typical customers use Comala Document Management for, a live demo, and a little bit about migration for those who are moving from cloud server to cloud now that server has been and will be ending life, I should say, in 2024. So who's Comalatech? Well, Comalatech's been in the ecosystem, in the Atlassian ecosystem, as a partner for well over 10 years now. We're running to 13 years now, and we have different types of apps in the marketplace for both for Confluence and for Jira. We have obviously our flagship product is Comala Document Management, which has also been in the ecosystem for just as many years, 13 years. And we have other apps to help support Comala Document Management in Confluence as well. For example, Comala Publishing. We have Comala Boards. We have Comala Read Confirmations, all for the cloud ecosystem and to help your workforce to better your process and control of your content. We have well over 40 members, or coming up to close to 50 now, in terms of team members across Comalatech. We have a big contingent here in North America, specifically in Vancouver. And we also have members in Spain in our Bilbao office as well to help support and create our great apps for our customers. What is Comala Document Management? Well, at the essence, Comala Document Management adds process and control to your Confluence content. And that's done by adding a review or approval process to your content. You can add features as in restrictions or eSignatures to allow for greater configuration to your process. But again, at the essence, Comala Document Management adds process and control to your Confluence content. Comala Document Management is available for all three flavors, cloud, currently server, but that will be ending as of February next year. And then we also have data center as well. Now, with over 5,000 customers and well over 10 million users utilizing Comala Document Management, we've garnered a lot of different use cases for the app itself. A lot of our customers will use it for knowledge bases or wikis. That's a really big segment right now of our customers. We have compliance and quality management, which is a big one with now COVID and kind of affecting everyone's life in their personal and business life. We have content management systems, product manuals, software development, and then policies for your companies as well. So all of these are again great use cases. They're just a handful of use cases which our customers use it for. Again, the software can be configured to match any use case or requirements that you may have. All right, so we're going to get into the live demo now for Comala Document Management. So what I have in front of us here is a space of mine in my Confluence Cloud instance. And in the space called Vancouver Space, I have a bunch of pages in here as well. Now the pages, again, can be any type of content you create. Ultimately, your hierarchy, your page tree, and your content will differ from mine greatly. But at the essence, again, Comala Document Management, what it does is adds process and control to your Confluence content. You'll notice here, when I click in a page, when we get to that page, you'll see that the content itself in this in this particular essence is approved. And you'll see that the content has a byline stating that the content has been approved as well. So when users come and see this page, let it be view only users or people who are in the content editing permissions group or are able to edit the page or view the page, they'll know that the page has been approved, and that's signified or displayed by the byline that we display on the page itself. So this is a key element or key view indicator that the page has been approved. Now, how does it get there? Well, it goes through what we refer to as an approval process through Comala Document Management. So if I click on edit on this page, let's say I update for webinar, and I'll publish this. And as soon as I update this page, you'll notice that the byline goes back to a previous state or an initial state called review. These states and phases of your workflow can all be configured and customized to match your requirements. We have templates that come out of the box for you for creating these, for applying these workflows to your page. We have the simple approval workflow, which we're currently using on this page. We have the content expiry workflow, and we have the QMS workflow, quality management system workflow as well. And all three of them can be utilized out of the box, or you can configure them and customize them through our workflow builder or JSON editor. And we'll take a look at that a bit later today, but just to go through the approval process. So I have my review here, and as an author, I click on the review icon. What will open up is our approval UI, or the workflow UI. And in here, I have the ability to add a comment. I can approve or reject this. More importantly, I can add a reviewer. And there's two different ways that you can add reviewers. One is a manual process that we'll do right now through this example, or you can also set reviewers automatically in your workflow. So for example, if I know that users Adam and Milo were going to be set as the reviewers for every page in the space for this particular review state, then I can set them automatically in my workflow, and that whenever a page is created or updated into the review state, both Adam and Milo will always be notified via email that they've been assigned to review the content in this review state. You can also set groups as well. So if Adam and Milo were part of a larger group called SME, and there are, let's say, 5 or 6 people in that group, then the entire group could be informed or will be informed of that pending review. And they could then simply just log in and complete the review process after they receive the notification via email. And you can also set what we refer to as a fast track approval as well. So if you need, let's say there's a bunch of people in your group, again, the SME group, and you only need one person to approve it to process that or transition that to the next state or phase of your workflow, then you can set up a fast track approval as well. So the flexibility is all in your fingertips, as in how you want to set up Comala Document Management. But we have, again, templates to help you sort all that configuration out for you. And we're also here to support you as well through your process or through your implementation of Comala Document Management to Confluence as well. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to assign a user. I'm going to add the user by the name of L, and I'm going to let her know that I want her to do something here. So I'm going to say, please approve the key to anatomy diagram. So I'm specifically telling her what to review, and let's see, review says approve. And I'll assign that over to L. You'll notice as soon as I assign that to L, the approve and reject buttons got grayed out here. So I, as the author, are no longer able to approve or reject it myself. It has to go to L for that approval. And once it gets to L, you'll see that I have my next state here and my final state. So these are just, again, examples of where and key visual indicators of what is to come for the approval process or review process. So if I approve it as L, it's going to go to the approved state. And if it's rejected, it'll stay in the current state called review. But I'll notify the author that the approval process or the workflow was rejected. I actually have L signed in here. So I'm going to go to that particular page in my space. Oh, that is not L, that's Adam. So let me log in as L. Okay, so here's L. And so L's been, we'll go to that space. And so L can now go ahead and complete the review process. And once she approves, the content is now approved, and the key visual indicator of the approved status is now visible. And the update for this webinar has been reviewed and approved. Now, that was a really simple review process, but sometimes that's all you really need. And what you get out of the box with the simple approval process is that particular ease of an approval process. So you don't have to do anything other than just flag that particular workflow called the simple approval workflow turned on. And that's how easy it is to review and approve your content with Comala Document Management. Now, if you want to see exactly what was completed in the approval process for that particular page, then you can go to what's called our activity report. And in this report, what gets displayed is the approval process and all the great data behind that. So you can see here that I changed this to the review process, or review state, I should say, on this particular date and time. And L was assigned to review it, and I told her what to review, and L gave her approval, and the content or the page itself has now been set to the approved status. Okay. And again, all this great information is stored with this page, and it's never deleted out of the off the page itself. So it's always stored with the page and never deleted. And for those that are worried about where this data is contained, don't worry. All your content and your page data is always stored within Confluence. Comala Document Management does not store any of this content in any of our cloud servers. This is all stored within the Confluence database itself. And that does definitely help with any of your GDPR compliance or any other compliance regulations out there, just to ensure that all that content is stored within one environment. So again, that was a very simplistic review process. Now, for those that are looking for a little bit more in terms of what else can be done, well, we also have the eSignature functionality, as I mentioned earlier. And so if I was to go to a page here, and this particular page, it requires an approval process, but the approval process requires an email and token. So that refers to our two-factor authentication. So you can set up a two-factor authentication. You can authenticate with any leading app vendors out in the market. For example, Inweebo is one that we integrated with, which allows for additional security. You can use Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, 1Password, whatever your organization uses for two-factor authentication. You can set that up. Each user can set that up within their corporate email, and they would be supplied a token every time they would need to review, and they can add that token in. I actually have another profile here, so they would just need to set up that code and go through. So I use Google Authenticator here. So when you're using Google Authenticator, basically you can just log in with that user profile, and you can um, complete that review process. So now I'm going to log in by the name my user Adam, and in order to complete that, I would need to be assigned to review. So I'm going to complete that process to assign the review. And so in here, I can add a reviewer. So I'm going to add Adam, and I'll say, please review one CFR 21. Assign, and now I've assigned that to Adam. And again, now if I do a refresh on the page, I'll now have the ability to complete my review process as Adam with my specific eSignature function in place. So I can go ahead and now put in my token with my supplied email at iCloud.com, and then add the email, the token 872409, and I'll add the comment of looks great, and I'll approve that. And I'll go to the next state called in approval, and here the specified users were assigned, and so I'm just going to refresh my page here. And it's now in the in approval state. And I'm going to approve that or send that for approval for my user Daryl. So Daryl at Comalatech.com, and then supply the one-time token and say yeah, and approve that. And it's now in the published state. So that means it's now approved, and the content is now visible to all users, or it's now available to all users. If we take a look, we'll see there's also page activity listed here, and the page activity itself, if you go through it, you'll see that in this case, again, I changed that to draft on a specific date. I assigned Adam to review it on a specific date and time. Adam signed and approved that. So for compliance regulatory, FDA or ISO, you can show to your auditors that Adam did sign and approve that. So that's the key element there for any compliance regulatory bodies. It was changed to in approval, and then Daryl signed and approved it on this date, and it's currently in the published state. So that, again, is the page activity that is stored with the page. As you can see here now, rather than just saying Adam approved it, Adam actually signed and approved that. And it's actually the user that actually signed it had to give their signing authority on that document. So that's how an approval process can be transformed onto a page. There's multiple different ways of using that. But for those that are just looking to use the content out or the workflow out of the box, that's how easy it is to use the workflows right out of the box. You can definitely transform them or configure them to match your additional requirements. And I'll show that to you just a second here. The last thing that I wanted to share with you on this particular space is the workflow report. So if you're looking for a holistic view of all your pages for this space and what current status they're in, well, this shows you all the current pages in the space and what current status they're in. And more importantly, if there is an expiry date for any given state or space, or for that page, I should say, you can see when the page actually expires. And on that date, when it does expire, the page will transition to the state that it needs to transition to and inform the author or any other person in Confluence that the page has transitioned to that page or to that particular workflow state that you've assigned it to. And that's all part and parcel of Comala Document Management. Now, how is this all completed? Well, all this information that we just went through is all handled through Comala Document Management, content tools, excuse me. And if you go to document management, we'll see that we have workflows, the basic approval workflow that's out of the box. And if you click on change workflow, we have the basic approval workflow, we have the content expiry workflow, and the QMS workflow, all part and parcel of your out of the box workflows that can be assigned to any single page or to a space as well. Now, if you add it to the space, just be aware that once you add one of the workflows to the entire space, that particular workflow will be utilized for all pages in that space. That's nice because as an administrator, I want to know that every page has a specific workflow applied to it, regardless if it's already created or for any new page that gets created. And it will continue to use that particular workflow for all pages. Now, we do recognize that for some environments, you may need other types of workflows for other types of content. And that's really nice because then you can go ahead and add in additional workflows. And you can see here, I have a bunch of different workflows that we've worked with previously. And you can add the workflow that you want to any single page as well. So the users will have a list of all these workflows and they can use any particular one. Typically, you'd only have one or two that would be activated, but you can definitely use those to apply to a page as well from a user standpoint. This is on the creation standpoint. So when you're creating a workflow, you can take a workflow. For example, I'll take this webinar workflow, or I'll take the QMS workflow that I have out of the box and we'll modify that particular workflow. So we'll go ahead, we'll apply that. Oops, that wasn't the workflow that I wanted, but I'll change that again and just use the QMS workflow that comes out of the box. And I can now click on the drop-down arrow key and I can choose to edit that with a builder, or I can choose to edit that with a JSON editor, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. We'll use the builder for this example. And in the builder, what you have is our navigation pane right out front, and then we have our working pane on the left side here. So if I want to modify, for example, the published state and say on published, I want to transform this or transition this to the obsolete state, but it's only going to be, transitioned not on a rejection, but on an expiry. So I'm going to add an expiry to my published state. I simply click on the published tab or the published button here, and then I can go to my left pane here and edit this, and I can add a expiry date here. So I can add the due date of 12 months, apply that, and now the due date is set to the published state. Now, if I want to modify the published state, I can click on published, and I can remove the approval because I don't need an approval on my final state called published. So this would be my final state that approvers would come to, or the page would come to, I should say. So I would remove that approval, and I would modify the pre-built transitions in here. So I'm going to remove all the transitions that came out of the box. I'm going to change that to expired, and I'm going to say on expiry, it's going to go to obsolete. And I'll add that, and now you'll see the arrow change and say now expired rather than rejection. So that's how easy it is to really start modifying your workflows or the out of the box templated workflows. Now, let's say I want to change the approval process. So I can go in and I can change the approval that comes with, that is part of the workflow. So I can go ahead and click on the approval. There's an approval name is called approval. So I'll just modify that. And there's three options that you can choose from. The first one is basically, if anyone stumbles across the page, they can click on the approve or reject buttons. Then you can set the user, can be assigned to the UI, which we did earlier by when I set Adam or L as the approver to review content. So I manually added someone in my Confluence instance, and that's choosing the second option here. Users can be assigned through the UI. I mentioned to you earlier that you can set users specifically directly in the workflow as well. So I can directly add, for example, Adam, and I can add perhaps another colleague, Sebastian, to this as well. And so now when Adam and when the workflow goes to the in approvals approval, Adam and Sebastian will automatically be notified via email that they've been assigned to review the content. Now, if I don't want to set users, but I want to set a group up, I can set the group up by simply by adding in the group. So I have a group called experts group, and that group would be notified every time, and the users assigned to that group in Confluence would be notified every time the page goes to the in approval state. If I want to say, well, I only need one person in that group to fast track that to the published state, well, then I can set that here, and that's called the minimum approvals. So now that the user is set to 1, they can as soon as everyone gets notified via email, as the first person to come in that wants to go ahead and approve that, they can set that to, they can approve that, and it will transition that to the published state. Doesn't matter if there's 5, 6, 7, 8 people, as the first person to come in and approve it, it will transition them to the in approval state. If I had 2 or 3 in here, that would mean that 3 people would have to review it in order to transition that, or 2, depending on if I had 2 in here as well. So, but if I left that blank, that means everyone would have to review that in order to transition that over to the published state. Whoops. 1. And then our advanced, if you want eSignatures turned on, then you would leave this to requires eSignatures, and then you have the ability to customize your labels that users would use to approve or reject the content. So you can change that from approved to send to in approval, or send to published, or send to draft. So I can say send to or I could say send to obsolete. Okay, and I can apply that. And now I may want to change this. So the next part of any workflow or phase or state, so the in approval state, I've transformed my my approvals. Now I want to transform my transitions. So on here I have updated. We'll go back if the page is in the in approval state and a user updates the content on the page, the workflow will transition back to the draft state. That's what updated means. Approved obviously means when it's approved, it will go to published, and when rejected, it will go to, I'm going to say it's going to go to the obsolete state. And so now I add that, and you'll see how the workflow changes a little bit. So now on rejected, it'll go to obsolete. On approval, it will go to published. And when updated, it'll go to draft. So that's how you can start modifying your approval. Now, if I try to save this, I'm going to get an error saying that the workflow of this name already exists. So I just need to change that. So I'll need to change the workflow name itself. So rather than quality management system workflow, I can say DK, or I'll say SOP, quality management system workflow, or whatever I want to call that. And so, or I can say version 1, quality management system workflow. And when I apply that, I now have a new workflow applied, and I can save that. And that workflow is now saved, and it can now be utilized, or I can turn it on by clicking on the green, clicking on this button here that will turn it on for the entire space. And so now that I have it turned on for the entire space, the workflow will be active for every page that is currently existing, and for any new page that ever gets created. Okay. So that's what Comala Document Management can do for you in Confluence Cloud. So for setting a workflow on a page, you can again set that as your entire space workflow. Or if I turn this off, now this particular workflow and any other workflows that I have uh, created would be active for users to choose from. They won't be able to set it for the entire space, but they would be allowed to choose that workflow directly onto the page that they're created or page that they're working with. Um, Folks, that's everything that I really wanted to touch on today in terms of Comala Document Management. As I mentioned, we do have some compatible apps, for example, Comala Publishing, that works well with Comala Document Management. For those that are looking for a simple way to have a process and control in place, but once that process and control is in place, they want to make sure that the page has been approved and also is has a true draft and published view, because we do encounter a lot of times when customers are looking for not only a way to approve pages but to show that they can view that published version of the content. That's where Comala Document Management and Comala Publishing work hand in hand. Comala Publishing allows you to sync content from one space to another once it's approved. So I have here this space here that has a Vancouver space, and once it's approved, it will sync with the my published space, which is called Vancouver Published. And so once the page has been published, you'll be rest assured that the content that people are viewing is the published version. So I can now go to my published page. Now that the page has been synced, now I can view the published version. And so this published version that we're looking at is a space that I created called Vancouver Published. And I synced the two up, my source space, which was Vancouver space, to my target space, which is Vancouver Published, in the publishing configuration portion of the content tools area. And so now whenever a user comes here, they would view the page and they would see the last approved version. And again, this goes hand in hand with a lot of customers of ours that are looking for a true draft and published version. And we do have some other apps that this ties in nicely with. For example, if you're looking for refined wiki and Comala Document Management and Comala Publishing work hand in hand together, and they work seamlessly when you want to display content on an outside environment to those users for the published content, and works great with knowledge bases as well. And again, that configuration piece to set up Comala Document Management and set up Comala Publishing is all done within Content Tools and directly right in Publishing. And I can sync the two up by just enabling the publishing feature and choosing the pay space that I created, which was Vancouver Published. And they are now synced and tied together. So whenever a page is created and approved, it will send that published content over to the Vancouver Published space. The last feature that I wanted to touch on, folks, is in my Vancouver space, I have a page called Read Confirmations, and this works great when I want to either have it in place with a process control with Comala Document Management, or it can be used on its own as well. And I just want to ensure that people are reading my great content that's out there based on let's say policy that's been created, and I need to ensure that everyone in my Confluence instance or in my who would hopefully be your entire user base at work or at your office, they would then be having to approve, or not approve, but confirm that they've read the page. So in here, you can see who's already read it. And I can, as an administrator, I can see all the people who have read that page as well. If I need to ensure that a new version has been created, that I can edit this document, and let's say I want to go through and publish it once again. So the content has been published, and you'll notice that the pending of the read confirmation is in place. I get an in-app message saying that I've been assigned to read this, and I also get an email notifying me that the page that you've been assigned to read that page, and this is what the email looks like. Okay. And I can now go in and I can complete the read confirmation by just going in, and I can see that I haven't read it yet, but I can complete it by reconfirming it. It'll give me a prompt saying, are you sure you want to confirm this? I'll say yes. And I've completed this, and the double check mark means that I've read this. It's partially done because not everyone has completed it, and you can see by clicking the see who's completed it, and you'll see that I'm the only one currently that has completed this. So I can see that stop sign messages. The green means yes, yellow means they've confirmed one version of it but haven't confirmed the new version, and the red means that they haven't confirmed reading the content whatsoever. Folks, that's everything that I really wanted to touch on today. I do thank you for all your time. I hope this was interesting. And if you do have any questions about Comala Document Management, about Comala Publishing, or even about Comala Read Confirmations, feel free to drop me. You'll have my contact details after today's session. You can reach me at daryl@comalatech.com. You can also reach out to support@comalatech.com, or you can have access to our wiki at wiki@comalatech.com as well. Folks, I thank you again for your time. Have yourself a great afternoon, great evening. And if any questions come up, feel free to drop us an email, or you can search through our wiki as well. Have a great day, folks. Thanks again. Take care for now.